the soundstage in the digital media classroom here at Wellington High School. Once again, welcome to another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes. Today's show is being brought to you by On Track Nutrition, located at 208 North Main Street here in downtown Wellington. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Before, we've always just had the Winter Endurance Challenge actually on the digital media YouTube channel, and you are always able to see what actually goes on during the Winter Challenge. We're going to do something, as I said, a little bit different today. We're going to go behind the scenes. And with that, we have Miss Sydney Skierski and Mr. Isaiah Brown. They will talk to us about how they actually filmed the Winter Challenge. You remember a couple of weeks ago when we interviewed Mr. Dave Conklin. He told us all about the Winter Endurance Challenge and what it was all about and how it was actually brought about here at Wellington High School. You remember that Sir Ernest Shackleton started out in about 1914, I believe, on a ship called the Endurance. And unfortunately, in about 1915, about a year later, the ship itself got caught in the ice and was actually crushed by the ice in the Weddell Sea in Antarctica, and subsequently actually did sink. As a result, the students in the class had to actually do an endurance challenge having to do with what actually happened in Antarctica with Shackleton and his crew of 27 and himself, and what they actually did to survive and successfully survive over 1.5 years. Mr. Conklin actually developed this program, this endurance challenge, with another teacher, and it's been going on for several years. So, as I said, today we're interviewing behind the scenes Miss Sydney Skierski and Mr. Isaiah Brown, and he's going to talk about what actually takes place behind the scenes and actually filming it. So the first question is going to be to you, Sydney. What camera did you actually use, and how much did the digital media class actually help you with actually filming the endurance challenge itself?
Well, I used an Osmo, and on that Osmo I had an iPhone. And a lot of the digital media, like earlier in the year, we did a lot of different movements that you could do with the Osmo, you know, what would look good in different situations and what would be the best thing to do.
Okay, what is an Osmo camera?
It holds your phone and it can like stabilize it, and you can like move it different ways. It just makes it
So it's like on a gimbal, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're moving it around, but there's no shaking or anything like that. Okay. Same question to you, Isaiah. I know that you used a drone. What did you use for the drone? What did the digital media class teach you, and who helped you with the drone?
I was helped with the drone by Paul Hornbeck, and the camera that we used, we had to use the iPhones that we use for the same with the Osmos, and we used that as the controller for the drone, and we were able to fly that around, use that as aerial shots, and then same with the gimbal, I use that in the barn and use the same thing that she did.
Now, Paul Hornbeck, I hope all of you recognize that name. He graduated from Wellington High School. What did you said earlier that you had flown smaller drones, but this was a bigger drone. What did he actually teach you?
He taught me like how to use the camera that it had on it and what different techniques you could use for filming.
Okay. Sydney, well, no, let's stay with Isaiah. How did you actually prepare for the challenge? Shall we say beforehand, before you actually got out to Mr. Conklin's farm?
Well, we learned how to pilot the drones, and we used the gimbals in other projects that we've used before. And you know, we also had to have jackets because it was cold out. But other than that, we already got prepared from previous projects and upcoming projects.
Okay. Sydney, how did you prepare? Using the Osmo, am I correct in saying that? How did you prepare?
Well, I knew we were going to be outside, and I just like kind of tried to think in my mind what would be the best for scenic shots, or you know, movement or action, or, you know, because they're doing a bunch of stuff.
Exactly. How did you actually prepare for, shall we say, what type of shots? You say you prepared for it. What type of shots were you actually responsible for?
A lot of when they were going up the hills on the sleds, a lot of action like axe throwing or the soccer or the skis, stuff like that.
And Isaiah, what was the drone footage used for?
It was used for like when they started out on their trek. We used that to have aerial shots of everyone.
Oh, okay.
eye level, there's not a lot of visibility because of the trees, but when
Sure.
you're above the trees, you can see
Oh, okay.
more.
Yeah, so it gives a much better, more rounded at the situation as far as being able to film, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Sydney, we know that this challenge lasted about 6 hours. For each activity, how long did each activity actually take place, or did it depend on the activity itself?
I guess it kind of depended on the activity. Going up the hill, it took a little bit of time. But once they got to the camp, like it didn't take them long to put up their shelter, and a lot of them had food cooking in like a really short amount of time. The games didn't take that long. They were fun to watch, and the way home, they were all tired and.
Now you said they were cooking food. They didn't have any matches to start the fire, did they? What did they use?
They used a knife. I'm not sure what it is, some kind of piece of metal.
Mm-hmm.
And they scraped it against it and struck a fire and made food from that. But
Mm-hmm.
Probably use flint.
Yeah, I think that's right. I remember from my Boy Scout days, it was some type of a flint type situation. Isaiah, there were several teams out there, 9 or 10 teams, something like that, I believe. What impressed you with the teamwork of each team?
Well, they had to use their coordination to get over many obstacles on the way to camp, and it was actually rather exciting to see everyone like work together in unison, almost perfectly on their way.
Mm-hmm. Sydney, we talked about the fact that you have to deal with the elements, and according to Mr. Conklin, the weather supposedly turned out to be absolutely perfect for the challenge itself. I believe that it had started the day before with a type of a rainy type situation that turned to ice, and then later on in the evening or early morning hours, there was a little blanket of snow on top. So how did you actually, from a point of view of trying to actually film this, how did the elements affect how you actually were able to film the actual challenges going on?
it was cold. It was hard to stay still long because then my legs would like freeze up. There was a couple times that I would like slip on the snow as we were going up or down the hill, trying to take shots and stuff.
Did you wear any specific clothing, different clothing?
Just
Any kind of boots or overcoat or anything like that?
Just layers and boots.
Layers.
Hat, yeah.
Did you get cold? Isaiah, what kind of a challenge did the endurance actually provide for you as far as being able to do the drone shooting and so on? She was doing a lot of the close-up things. She said that she slipped, but you're doing things above the situation. So what kind of a challenge did that actually present?
Well, we had to be wary of the trees mainly, but at the same time I had to watch my footing because at some point there was a little river with mud in it, and I stepped in that mud. I almost lost my boot.
Oh.
And I still haven't cleaned them off, but it was mainly getting the footage, watching for the trees, because I had to be a spotter at points with the drone for Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we had to get the drone back and go farther up the trail, it was getting up the muddy hills and all that.
Mm-hmm. Did the drone ever get away from you?
And no.
No, because there have been times in Mr. Conklin's class that the drone has actually gotten away from the students, and they had to go find it, and it took quite a while to find it, I believe. Same question now to both of you, and we'll start with Sydney again. What did you take away from the experience of actually filming this endurance challenge?
Well, it was a lot of fun, and it just like showed me how hard work that they put into the endurance challenge and stuff, and like how hard it was sometimes to get the perfect shot.
And was it hard to get the perfect shot? And again, going back to what you learned in the digital media class, did you know how to get that perfect shot?
Sometimes it was a little difficult, but I just kept going at it, and it turned out pretty well.
Uh-huh. Do you have any idea how many hours of footage you actually got?
I'm not sure, but I got a lot.
Did you get a lot? And again, from an editing point of view, you had to have to get that kind of condensed into a situation, hopefully that isn't too long, that would make the people that are actually watching the challenge get bored and to see it. So from that aspect, what did you take away from the experience?
There was a lot of editing and stuff we had to do, but it's a good thing that it lasted so long, the challenge, because then for editing, we'd have a lot of extra stuff because we needed it, but as well as the fact that the people doing the challenge are incredibly resilient to everything around them. And I think this teamwork that they have is incredible. And I feel like if they were in a situation that was kind of like the endurance itself, I feel like they might survive, as long as it's not as hard.
According to what happened out there 100 and some years ago, the fact that the winter was very harsh, and even then, all of them ended up surviving, and the fact that they were able to do everything with teamwork involved. And it's the same thing with the two of you and Miss Cianciola, the teamwork involved between the three of you to actually film the challenge itself. And at this time, I think it's appropriate that we actually name the winners of this year's 2022 Winter Endurance Challenge. Sydney, who are the winners?
The winners were the Material Girls, and on that team was Joyce Stallard, Emma Wacker, Madeline Ossie, McKenna Sokevich, and Nathan Mahalik.
Very good. Well, congratulations to all of the Material Girls on winning the challenge. And thank you, Sydney and Isaiah, for coming in and kind of giving us a behind-the-scenes situation, how the Endurance Challenge is actually filmed, and so that when the Endurance Challenge actually comes up and is on the Digital Media YouTube website, whatever, sorry about that, we'll be able to know who the actual winners of the Winter Endurance Challenges is. We'll be back after this message with another special guest. This is Dialogue with the Dukes.
Hey you, do you feel like starting your day off strong by drinking something healthy? Well, you're in luck. On Track Nutrition is here to help. They have a variety of drinks and appetizers, such as their protein shakes that contain 17 grams of protein. Even their waffles contain 30 grams of protein, and they are both less than 200 calories. They have products such as protein powders to put in your drinks, and etc. If you want to contact them, you can find them on their Facebook and their website, which are called On Track Nutrition, or you can call 440-529-3692 for more information.
We are back. We hope that if you have any nutrition questions, you visit On Track Nutrition, located at 208 North Main Street in downtown Wellington. They are an herbal life center, and they are responsible for or want to try to improve the health and happiness of the village of Wellington. As I told you when we went to break, we had a special guest lined up for the second portion of this particular Dialogue with the Dukes. And as you can see from the background, we are actually on the set of Newsies, which is the new McCormick Middle School play that's going to be run tomorrow night and Saturday night, the 11th and 12th of March. We have with us the managing director of the theater, Dottie Cianciola. Dottie, welcome.
Thank you.
We were talking in the first portion about all of the things involved with actual videotaping of the Winter Challenge. I know that you were responsible for the videotaping also.
Yes.
What cameras did you use? What shots were you responsible for?
I started out with a gimbal, which was what Sydney used throughout the day. However, my phone died pretty quickly. So once that happened, I fortunately had my iPad with me, so I turned to that. And I noticed that she had the gimbal, so she was able to do a lot of beautiful pans with that. So then my thought, I would focus more on tight shots, that kind of thing, to complement what she was doing, because Sydney definitely had the brunt of the videotaping. And so it worked out. When I began to edit, I was surprised, first of all, of what a fantastic job she did, going throughout the entire event, videotaping really everything. So it was a pleasure to pull it all together, and my end of it then filled in the holes nicely.
Now, Isaiah did the drone footage with the help of Paul Hornbeck, and that was, as he explained earlier in this episode, that this was more of a above the trees type thing, looking down and getting a perspective from looking down on top of the challenge.
That is correct. And Paul and Isaiah, again, beautiful footage they have. It was such a pleasure to edit the portion that I did of that. And I think when people watch this, they're going to be surprised at just what a great job was done with the drone. It's great.
Yeah, well, we want to put in a clip here, as a teaser, shall we say?
Yes.
A teaser of what you're actually going to see when you
Yes.
see the Endurance Challenge all put together. Could you introduce the clip?
Yeah, it's from the camp portion of the Endurance Challenge. It's a good clip. You'll enjoy it.
Good. We are back. We hope you enjoyed the clip. We talked a lot with the students, and now I want to talk to you about the challenge, and we've talked about this already a little bit earlier. The challenge of editing all these number of hours, 6 hours plus of taping, trying to whittle it down into a watchable show that isn't going to make people, yawn and say, oh, I don't want to watch this anymore. What was the challenge in trying to get all of the best parts all together into one particular show?
Well, I think the way we set it up was really good because between the three of us, Sydney, Isaiah, and myself, we divided it up in portions of the day. So, part 1, part 2, part 3. So we were just responsible for that part, and we only received the video that pertained to our part.
Right.
So that helped a lot. The footage was just so great. The action, the aesthetically, it was a beautiful, Dave Conklin has a beautiful property. And there was a lot of teamwork involved in that. It was a pleasure to do that. So for me, it was just a matter, we got the clips in order. I went through it, and then, I took out what I needed to take out. We tried to give ourselves an amount of time to not exceed. And we hit the mark, and I just enjoyed it so much that it was a great challenge.
Well, one of the things that we learned is the fact that Sir Ernest Shackleton, he not only brought mariners along with him, people to run the ship and so on, he also brought along other people that would allow the people to, shall we say, keep their minds in the game and so on. And Dottie, you judged the fine arts performance, quote unquote, of the particular Endurance Challenge. Talk to us about that.
Honestly, it was a hard one to judge in the sense that they all had different things that they brought out. Some of them did like a rap thing, there were some musical numbers, there were some jokes going on, so that kind of thing. My big thing was I was looking for originality, and something that, like with the humor, something that in some sense it was funny. And so that's what I based my final decision on, was what I found to be the most creative.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about all of the stuff that went into this. So from your perspective, what did you get from this experience?
Well, let me first just say about the theater portion of it. One reason that I believe they did the theater under those, the original Shackleton endurance was not only to entertain the people, but to keep them mentally healthy in some sense, because they were under such grueling circumstances. And I just think, being a theater person, that in my opinion, that just really shows that theater is a very important part of good mental health.
What did you gain from this experience, since you've never done it before and since you get to see the challenge for the first time up close and personal?
First of all, I was very pleasantly surprised with all of the teamwork that took place, which really is crucial for something like this to be successful. And I attribute a lot of that to Dave Conklin and the amount of time he goes from part 1 in the classroom all the way to the end of this. how well he has it organized and the time he invests. And so I attribute a lot of that success to him. He's been doing this now for a few years, I understand, and it's just an amazing thing. The other thing is, being out in the cold for that long period of time was something I had not been exposed to in several years. And at first I was thinking, oh, are they going to go through with it today? It's so cold. We had that ice storm going on and everything. And then I'm so glad that we did. It was so enjoyable to me, and it really connected me, I think, again, to nature in a way that I had not been connected in a while. And so it makes me want to do more of that kind of thing.
Well, yesterday we had something incredible happen. The ship, the three-masted ship that Ernest Shackleton had with all of his 27 people plus himself, the ship itself actually sunk in the Weddell Sea in Antarctica. It was crushed by the ice and sank underneath into the ocean. Yesterday, the 9th of March, it was actually found. And it was found in about 10,000 feet of maybe the coldest water on the planet, which allowed for it to be it was incredibly in good shape. And I think the fact that the Winter Challenge took place at this particular time is just amazing how that all seemed to work out.
Yeah.
Well, once again, we would like to thank both Sydney Skierski and Isaiah Brown and Dottie Cianciola for providing all of the information about what actually takes place behind the scenes of the Winter Endurance Challenge. We'll be back again very soon with another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes.